Hello, everyone. Welcome to our physical geography lecture on the internal process. Okay, so we're going to be talking today about the internal earth processes that shape our landscape. So let's dive in. So the world beneath our feet is constantly active, and these internal processes are fundamentally responsible for shaping the lithospheric landscape that we see around us. So think about the majestic Rocky Mountains, the deep mid-Atlantic ridge, or even the volcanic islands of Hawaii. All of these features exist because of what's happening inside our planet. And it's important to understand that these internal processes rarely act in isolation. They work together, sometimes in harmony and sometimes in opposition, to create the diverse landforms that we see today. So let's take a look at our slides. Okay, excellent. All right. Okay, so let me move. Sorry, just getting set up here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so for centuries, scientists believed in what we call the rigid Earth theory. The idea that Earth's continents and ocean basins were fixed in place since their formation, but a variety of discoveries challenged this view. And if you look at a world map, you might notice something interesting. The eastern coastline of South America seems to fit remarkably well within the western coastline of Africa, almost like pieces of a puzzle. And this observation wasn't lost on earlier geographers, but it took a German meteorologist named Alfred Wegner to develop a comprehensive theory. So this brings us to Wegner's continental drift theory. And in the early 20th century, Wegener proposed his continental drift theory. He suggested that on a geological time scale, we're talking about millions of years, continents are actually quite mobile. And Wegener's revolutionary idea was that all continents were originally connected in one massive continent or supercontinent that he called Pangaea, which existed about 250 million years ago. So, according to his theory, this supercontinent broke apart and the fragments of our modern continents have been drifting ever since. So, what is the evidence for continental drift? Well, the evidence that Wegener presented was compelling. So, first there's the jigsaw puzzle fit of the continental margins, particularly between Africa and South America. And if you could push these continents together, they would fit remarkably well, especially along their sub-equatorial portions. But the evidence goes beyond just matching coastlines. Geologists found striking similarities in rock types and fossil records on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. For example, the same types of fossil ferns and reptiles appear in rocks of the same age in both Eastern South America and Western Africa. And if these continents were always separated by thousands of miles of ocean, how could the same species exist in both places? So take the Mesosaurus, a freshwater reptile that could not have swum across the Atlantic Ocean. Yet we find its fossils in both Brazil and South Africa. Or take a look at the flora. The same fossil plants found in South America, Africa, India, and Australia. Australia and Antarctica. These distributions make perfect sense if the lands were once connected. Now, these patterns would be continuous if there was no Atlantic Ocean between them, exactly what you'd expect to see if the continents were once joined and later separated. Today, the evidence has expanded and gives us a comprehensive framework for understanding how internal processes shape our world's surface, from mountain buildings to volcanic activities to earthquakes. Okay. All right, excuse me. I lost which slide I was on. So, what evidence led scientists to develop this groundbreaking theory? Well, when we look at ocean floors, we notice something fascinating. There is a continuous system of large ridges running through our oceans, often located in the middle of ocean basins. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is a perfect example. It stretches nearly 10,000 miles from the Arctic Ocean to the southern tip of Africa. Additionally, we find deep trenches in many areas of the ocean floor, particularly around the margins of ocean basins. The Mariana Trench in the Western Pacific, for instance, plunges to depths of nearly 36,000 feet, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. So these features needed explanations, which brings us to sea floor spreading. So in the early 1960s, scientists proposed the theory of seafloor spreading. According to this theory, those oceanic ridges I just mentioned are formed by currents of deep-seated magma rising up from the mantle. This magma erupts at the ridge, creating new ocean crusts. It's essentially the newest land on Earth. So let me give you a visual. Imagine pulling apart a chocolate bar that has a line down the middle. As you pull it apart, the gap widens. In Earth's case, molten material forms below and rises to fill that gap, creating new crust at the ridge. And this means the seafloor at the ridges is actually the newest crust formed on our planet. But if new crust is constantly being created, what happens to the old crust? So that's where subduction comes in. Subduction is the process where older oceanic crust descends back into Earth's interior at those deep ocean trenches. The crust is then melted and recycled into the convective cycle operating within Earth. A real world example is the subduction of the Pacific plate beneath Japan, which creates the Japan Trench and is responsible for Japan's frequent earthquakes and volcanic activity. So, how do we know this is actually happening? Two key lines of evidence support sea floor spreading. First, we have paleomagnetism. When lava cools, tiny magnetic materials within it align with Earth's magnetic field. Now, we've discovered that Earth's magnetic field has reversed itself more than 170 times throughout history. By examining the magnetic orientation of rocks on the seafloor, scientists found a remarkable symmetrical pattern on both sides of the oceanic ridges. And this pattern of magnetic stripes perfectly records the magnetic reversals and proves that the seafloor has been continuously created and pushing outward from the ridges. Secondly, ocean floor core sampling reveals that sediment age and thickness increase with distance from the ridges. So sediments closest to the ridges are thin and young, while those farthest away are thicker and older, exactly what we would expect if new seafloor is being created at the ridges. Okay, by 1968, this evidence convinced many scientists that the theory of plate tectonics was viable. Now we understand that Earth's lithosphere is divided into about a dozen major plates and several smaller ones, each approximately about 100 kilometers thick and consisting of both oceanic and continental crusts. These plates are not stationary. They're moving across Earth's surface at a rate varying from 1 to 10 centimeters a year. That's about as fast as your fingernails grow. So while these seem slow, Over millions of years, it's enough to completely reconfigure our continents. Now, what drives this movement? Well, the mechanism behind plate tectonics is convection within Earth's mantle. The same process that makes hot water rise and cold water sink in a pot of water on your stove. But on a planetary scale and with rock instead of water, we still have this convective motion. So I'm going to conclude this portion. In our next lecture, we're going to discuss plate boundaries and the landforms they create. So see you in a moment.